Good.
And fruits. Very good.
Cristiano. Alex. Lower this microphone. Lower. Alex. Lower down. Up. Okay, good. We're good.
It should be about something.
Anyone outside who's waiting, please come on in. We are starting shortly. Come on in. Right, Claudio, if you can just check if we are waiting for any more people. All right, we are live. Greetings, everyone. Whoever is here in this auditorium or whoever is watching us online. So, welcome to the very final distinguished lecture series of the Space Studies Program 2022. We have gone through lots of lectures, panels, and time really flies. This is week 7 of our program and the last day of week 7 indeed. And this is our last live stream distinguished event. So with this event, we are making actually a grand finale, let me call it, because we have a very distinguished guest today, as you can see with me on the stage, Rodrigo da Costa. So, as you probably know, but some of you maybe may not be aware, we have a new agency in the European Union, the EUSPA, European Union Agency for the Space Program, which is a newly established agency, and the director, Rodrigo, is with us today. So this is relevant to lots of the things that we have covered during the program, and it's very relevant to lots of the team projects that you are currently working on. So Rodrigo will definitely briefly talk about the agency and their activities, but we also want to leave lots of time for your questions, because I think this is the main gain that you will get from this very activity. With that, thank you very much once again for joining us. Please give him a warm welcome.
So, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. And good afternoon also from my side to everyone in the auditorium, those of you that are present and those of you that are absent working in your assignments. I understand it's a very busy time, so I wish you all the luck for the assignments you have. Also, good afternoon for everyone that is connecting and watching this live stream. As just said, I will do a brief presentation and I will tell you a little bit about our agency, the European Union Agency for the Space Program. I will tell you also something about the EU Space Program and the activities we do in the European Union, and then I will have also a lot of time. By the way, I will explain you also a little bit what it is to run an agency and what it means to run an agency in the European Union context, which is probably not very different from the, let's say, public context is we have all around the world. And then I'll have a lot of time for your questions. So if you have any question, anything, don't hesitate in the end. I will be very glad to answer those. Um, by the way, I will say a number of things that many of you will know, others may not know. Certainly there will be new things that no one knows in my presentation. So apologize if there is a bit of a repetition. Let me start by giving you a little bit the frame of, well, what is the European Union? I think that most of you know, 27 member states in Europe. Here you have the map. And the European Union is a supranational organization, so it's, if you want, somehow above the nations on a number of capabilities and prerogatives and responsibilities that the Union as a whole has. For many years, the Union was not involved in space. Space was actually a matter for the member states. Each of the countries, they had their space activities. Many of them did those space activities alone. Others worked in bilateral collaboration. Others yet got together in another agency that certainly you know, the European Space Agency, working together on many different projects. Now, since a little bit more than 10 years, the European Union has also responsibilities in space. And in particular, there is the founding, one of the founding treatises on the functioning of the European Union, that in one of its articles says that the Union as a body, if you want, has a responsibility in space, has to set up a space policy, and has the mandate to set up space activities. Now, the activities of the Union in space, they are already there since a while. You will know some of those names you will know. And as the Union, the European Union is evolving its role in space, now there is the creation of this EU space program as a whole. Does this work? Yes. So, we have a new European Union space program. There is a law, it's called a regulation in our jargon or in our wording, that establishes the European Union space program. And basically it says, well, it's a very long text as you can imagine, but basically it says what are the activities that the Union does and will do in space. This was approved and validated a bit more than a year ago. It was published in May 2021. And it basically brings together a number of activities that were already there, already part of the European Union, and it adds new ones. The most known ones are the things that the European Union was doing in the area of navigation and in the area of Earth observation. For navigation, you may have heard of EGNOS. Well, if you are in Europe, you certainly have heard of EGNOS. EGNOS is the regional augmentation system. It is similar to the American WAAS. There are other similar systems in the world. It's mostly directed to aviation, but it's basically an augmentation system. It picks up signals from global navigation satellite systems and augments them, gives them the reliability, in particular for what we call the safety of life applications. The other one in the world of navigation, that one you certainly heard of, it's Galileo. Galileo is the global navigation satellite system. So at the image of GPS, GLONASS, Beidou, this is the European satellite system. Global coverage, I will talk a little bit about it later on. Global coverage, position, PNT, position and timing type of service. And then there's echo. There is a royal echo behind me. I'm sorry for that. It's not on purpose. Maybe if I move to the back, I take out the echo. Echo is very disturbing. Is the echo gone? No, it's worse. Bon. We'll try with the echo. No, maybe it's not that. At least I don't hear it. I was saying, I talked about navigation. Then there is. It's very annoying. Can you try to cancel the echo? Shall I use that thing? Can you disconnect this? Better? No. Not really. Is there still echo? Is there no? And the computer is
the headset, and we're gonna fix it.
There's echo.
Hello. Test. 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 Test.
what is in the minds of the legislators and the people that made these decisions is, well, we had a very successful navigation program, but it was dedicated to navigation and the navigation user world. We had a very successful Earth observation program dedicated to Earth observation and that world. Can I bring those together and can I create synergies? Because for the users, well, maybe not for us in this room, most of us, I mean, all of us space fans, people that are interested in space, but those people outside that are not really interested in space, but on what space can bring to their lives, to their businesses, ultimately they don't care if it comes from a navigation satellite or from an Earth observation satellite, they care about the solution. So the creation of the synergies was fundamental in the establishment of the program. But there was more to it, because it was not only about navigation and Earth observation, was to add, well, one of the missing elements there, which is the element of the telecommunications, communications. And with that, there is the creation of what is called GovSatcom, Governmental Secure Communications, with a focus, of course, on the governmental users. Space situational awareness, also a very important activity, and of course something, as you certainly know, with a lot of importance, but also a lot of importance when we project ourselves into the future. So a lot of work also being done, and mostly that will be done there. And then there are other areas that are touched by the space program. Of course, access to space is an important element. Everything that is related to entrepreneurship, innovation, again, connected to the creation of synergies. So this is a little bit the big picture and how this program came together from existing elements, adding new elements, all under the same roof to create synergies. One of the very interesting things that I like to say here, and it's very nice to be talking to an audience of, well, professionals, but also people with a long career in space ahead. And it's very interesting because it's a very good time to work in space, and it's a very good time to start working in space, because space, well, we know that it is important, but more than us, the people around us, the deciders, the politicians, they understand that space is important. And this we see very simply, for example, in the fact that the youth space program has the biggest ever investment of the Union in space. It is bigger than what it used to be in the past, all the elements separate. When they were added together, the budget is higher. We are talking about 15 billion euro, a little bit more in dollars, 15 billion euro over the period of 7 years. So it's quite a lot of money. And it's quite a lot of money that was decided 1 year ago. So it was decided in a difficult time. The parliamentarians, the heads of government, they had big concerns because they were fighting a pandemics, complex geopolitical situation. Of course, a situation also, if we look at in the scope of the Union, a situation of Brexit as well, that had an impact on the Union. But still, with all this, they decided to put more money in space than they did in the past. And this is something we are seeing, is the importance of space is growing. And something that used to be, maybe there was a political divide, there were some areas of the society more interested in it than others. Today, it is consensual. We really have, as space professionals all together, we really have the wind on our back, and we have to use this wind on our back and this opportunity. This is a very important message, in particular if you are coming from another sector and you are doing the SSP because you want to consider whether to move to space, is to say, yes, do so, because there is a world of opportunities, here. It's true in Europe, it's true all over the world. How this used to work, it doesn't work anymore. It works like that. Few words about the programs. I'll not extend myself because I already explained. So starting with Galileo and EGNOS, these two systems provide services for users. Galileo provides a number of services that are to be used by everyone. The most notable one is the open service. That is the service of Galileo. It's the signals of Galileo that you receive in your mobile phone, in your car. Today there are around 3 billion receivers equipped with Galileo. The biggest majority of those are mobile phones, cell phones, a lot of wearables as well, in-car navigation. All cars sold in the Union or newly homologated in the Union since 2018 have to be equipped with Galileo. So it's becoming more and more common. Our estimation again is around 3 billion users, 3 billion receivers equipped with Galileo. But there are others. There's search and rescue, dedicated for search and rescue, primarily at sea, but more and more in mountains, remote areas. There is the public regulated service for governmental use, and then there are new services coming with authentication, high accuracy, basically providing more accuracy one, and the other one providing better resilience, in particular to spoofing. which is, of course, something very important these days. And then we have EGNOS. EGNOS, we have about 700 runways equipped all over Europe. The geographical coverage is the European continent, basically. It extends a little bit to the north of Africa and to the east, used by aviation. On EGNOS, it happened something very interesting to us. It was about 10 years ago. EGNOS was in the beginning. It was still in the testing phase, and while ongoing maintenance, we had to stop the service for a while. We warned all the airports and aircraft that were using EGNOS, please don't use it in these days. We stopped the service, and we started getting calls from the agricultural community, because we had never realized, but the tractors were using EGNOS for precision. And today, 95% of all tractors that are sold in the European Union, they are equipped with EGNOS. So it is, if you want, a very, very big user community as well, although the product or the system was initially not directed in any means to them. It's also growing, by the way, in the area of maritime. You know, many European countries are starting to dismount lighthouses, radio navigations, so many systems are moving to EGNOS. So a system in growth. I've mentioned Copernicus already. This is just to highlight also Copernicus provides services to users, very much in the direction of governmental users. You have, I will not list all of them, but you will see there the main areas of institutional use that you can make from imagery, satellite data, in situ data, process data, always based in free and openly accessible data. So data that can also create business opportunities. If after the SSP you get out of here with a great idea, or you had one before and you want to push it forward, well, you can build your startup, you can build your entrepreneurial way, your innovation, built also on this type of data that, again, is free and openly accessible. I've mentioned GovSatcom. GovSatcom is about the aggregation of existing capabilities and making it available to all the 27 member states, governmental users. This is why it's called GovSatcom, based on capabilities that few member states have right now. I will talk a little bit more about telecom in the end of my presentation, when we will be looking at what will come or what may come next. Good. This is a space program. Let me talk to you a little bit about our agency. First thing, EUSPA, European Union Agency for the Space Program. As you can see, we are not very good in acronyms, because the European Union Agency for the Space Program doesn't end up in EUSPA. But okay, that's it's the short name, EUSPA. And we have been there, as was said, since last year, so with the new law, the new regulation. But we have been there for about 20 years. First, dedicated to Galileo. It was at the time the Galileo joint undertaking. Then we became a GNSS supervisory authority. That was the time when the agency was called the GSA. That acronym stayed. We changed name. We were European GNSS Agency, still GSA. Again, not very good in acronyms, but still. So the GSA name stayed all the way until 2021, when we changed from being the GSA, dedicated to Galileo, to become EUSPA, dedicated to the space program. And again, this regulation that I mentioned, on the one hand, it creates the program, on the other hand, it creates the agency. So these are the two main functions of this law. Now, on all of these and all of these things, as you can imagine, there are many people working on this. Of course, we work on this, the European Commission works on this, we work with the European Space Agency. There are many agencies, border protection, maritime security, etc., that are using space data and that are working on this. So what is the role of EUSPA? I like to explain the work of EUSPA based on three pillars. Basically, our three core competencies, the things that we do, the things that we do well, if you want. The first one is to exploit. Exploit means basically we operate, we maintain, we evolve, we protect the satellite systems. And here we have a very strong focus on Galileo and EGNOS. So we are operating Galileo, we are operating EGNOS, and we are maintaining those systems. We are developing OffSatcom. This is something that is happening right now. So the system is under development, and we will become next year the front desk of the SST front desk, so Space Surveillance and Tracking front desk for the European Union. The second very important pillar that we have is security. Security for space and space for security. Security for space means we protect our assets. So how do we protect the assets that the Union has? How are they protected physically, from a cyber perspective? And space for security means how can space help making our lives more secure? How can space be used in civil protection missions, by blue forces, by military forces, etc., etc. So utilization of space data, space services for security missions. And last but not least, and this is probably the thing we are best known for, we do what we call the market uptake. Market uptake, communications, entrepreneurship. As you can imagine, whenever the governments and the European Parliament decided to put 15 billion euro on this, they said, okay, but it needs to bring something. It's not just for entertaining a number of engineers to build something very fancy and nice. It needs to bring something. It needs to bring advantage to the people. So that's the work we are doing, is basically to foster the use. I think some of you have been in touch with at least one of my colleagues that has intervened in one of the group work exactly on that. So fostering the use, and how can we make sure that we use space on many different sectors. So the exploitation is exactly about that. It's about service provision. We don't do this alone. This is very important, of course. We receive our mandate, it's coming from the European Commission. We work with industry that does a lot of the operational console type of work. We work with the European Space Agency that is developing the new generation, the new technology, the next generation of Galileo, the next generation of EGNOS. And then, of course, we take those satellites, we put them into operations, and we operate them for the duration of their life every day. We improve them. Of course, there's always patches and corrections and things to be done. We operate a vast network of stations all across the globe for Galileo. We have stations in the Arctic, in the Antarctic, in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, in the Atlantic, in Europe, in North America. So there's a little bit stations of Galileo everywhere. It's a very complex. It's a very complex system. So these are the responsibilities and the things we do when we exploit. When we do security, there are 3 different steps, if you want, on the security. First is to bring the security context from an engineering point of view. For those of you with a background in engineering, you know the V-cycle, you put the requirements, you develop, then you verify in the end. Now, it's very important that if you have security requirements, that you put them correct and well upstream, because a change in the requirements at the end of the V normally it sends you back to the beginning of the V, right? Because you have to implement the new requirement. So security engineering is a very important element, and it's a speciality that we have and that we have developed. Focus on the cyber security again, but also on the physical security, the guarding of the sites, etc., etc. Then we operate security. This is a little bit of a more complex thing. What does it mean to operate security? Well, it basically means that we have people 24/7 in front of the console analyzing the systems and checking that there are no problems. No one is entering the sites, no one unauthorized, no one is trying to get into the IT systems, etc., etc. So the operation of security means to monitor the security of the system, but it also means to give access to the system to the governments that then use it. And we accredit. Again, another bit complex concept. Accredit means we put the stamp, that the systems are fit for purpose. And this is done not by us as an agency, but by a board that is where all the member states are represented, typically the national security authorities. They analyze the system and they say, yes, it's good, you can operate, it is secure. When it comes to the market uptake, there we do many things, and we do have many tools for it, because we work with subventions, so funding. We provide funding to industry, European industry that comes with a good idea to use data, space data, European space data for a particular application. We provide finance. There are calls for that. We like to work in very diverse areas. We just closed the call, for example, where we were working on 3 areas: Green Deal, digitalization, emergency management. And basically people from all over Europe, companies from all over Europe, they came forward, they presented their ideas. This is classic EU subvention for those of you that know the Horizon world. Then we do a lot of entrepreneurship, fostering of entrepreneurship. We have a Space Academy, an entrepreneurship academy. We do coaching, we do prizes, matchmaking. We have agreements with banks, with venture capitalists, where basically we help people that have ideas to become startups and to mature those startups as they move forward. This is done in the frame of a program called Cassini. It's a very big program. It's more than €1 billion, where there is investment being done in entrepreneurship. There, again, for us, is really about the application. We are looking for ideas that solve problems. So we try, and we do very early, bring the people that have idea in contact with the end user. Maybe a association of truck drivers, it may be an association of tractor drivers, it may be most different applications, but for us it's very important to create that exchange between the idea and the technology part and the user element. Now, a few words on work we are doing and why space is important. And I've mentioned, and I've said, and I repeat, it's a very good time to start working in space. Space is becoming more and more consensual. Space is becoming more and more attractive for people outside space. Why? Well, you see here the 13 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. These 13 goals are attainable in a quicker manner, in an easier manner, if we use space data, space technology. Space is important for mankind, for humankind. It's important for all of us. By using space, we come closer to achieving the SDGs of the UN. Space has a very important contribution to what is called the EU agenda. And the EU agenda is actually not only an agenda of the EU. Many of these things, they are an agenda of our world. Of course, when we look at the EU, a stronger Europe is an important element. A European Union that is non-dependent, but that is also able of collaborating, cooperating around the world. The implementation of the Green Deal, how do we reduce our environmental footprint? Clearly, space has an extreme value for that. Be it the smart cities, the farm-to-fork efficient agriculture, more efficient energy management, etc., etc. On all these things, space already plays today and can play in the future a very strong role. The digitalization, making sure that there is no digital divide, that access to the digital world is equal, but also that we benefit all together from digital world. For example, Internet of Things. Internet of Things without space is not really imaginable. So it is an enabler for the Internet of Things. And resilience. Resilience in many means. I think it is important, for example, to highlight how space can contribute to our resilience in the case of pandemics that we just went through, or hopefully we went through, who knows. But how can we make sure, and how did space help for that? Well, it helped monitoring border traffic, for example. It helped monitoring how goods were moving around. How did we make sure that even if we had restrictions in the transit of people, that the goods were still passing the borders, that people were still getting what they had to get. We had a very interesting app. We developed a very interesting app called Green Lanes, exactly for that, and it's still in use. We are now generalizing that app. It used to be dedicated to road transport. Now we are bringing also to rail transport. So resilience, also a very resilience of our economy, of our society, also a very important element for a contribution, where space has a contribution. You've heard of this, I think, at least those of you that work with my colleague heard of this. I invite you to have a look. It's a very nice report, something we publish every 2 years. The last one is from January this year. It basically, we make an assessment of what space can bring to the different sectors. And you will see all the 17 market segments. It's very diverse. It's not written, one of the things you'll notice, is not written for space specialists, it's written for specialists of that sector. So when you read, I don't know, the editor's special on medicine, it was actually written by doctors and by specialists in the area. And they write it, and we work together to write it on how space can help, in this case, the health sector. And you will have others: energy management, forestry, agriculture, road, maritime, rail transport, etc., etc. And the interesting thing is that this is a huge market. There's a lot of money to be made there. And there's a lot of potential to do to materialize many interesting ideas there. So, coming to an end, let me just spend 5 minutes in telling you a little bit what it means to run an agency. It's my job, so I will share a little bit of what is my job and some of the key facts and figures, then a little bit more concrete. So, right now, we are about 250 people, staff. We work also with people on site, industry with us on site. So all in our buildings, we are about 500 people. We are growing. We'll become 300 staff, 600 people working. And staff today from all the member states of the European Union. And we manage a budget of around a little bit less than 10 billion euros. So from the 15 that I mentioned, that it's the whole space program, 10 come to us. The others are distributed in different manners. We have staff, so our own people, in several locations. I myself am fortunate enough to live in the wonderful city of Prague, in the Czech Republic. Very, very nice place to be, but I'm working also with people that are located in other sites. So we have our reference center that is in Noordwijk, in the Netherlands. We have our security monitoring centers, one in the outskirts of Paris, the other one in the outskirts of Madrid, in Spain. We have our service center also in Madrid. We have our EGNOS center that is in Toulouse. I have staff in Brussels, limited set of people working very close to the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the European Council. And then, of course, there's a lot of industry working, and of course, big industrial sites, operational sites in France, in Germany, in Italy, in all around the world, in many territories, etc., etc. From a governance point of view, we are a typical agency. So, as the director and as the responsible for what we call the executive, I answer to a board. In the board, I have 27 member states, so all of them are there, all the member states. I have the European Commission, I have the European Parliament also represented there, and of course, we discuss all the activities that we do. And then there is the Security Accreditation Board, which is working in very close collaboration inside the agency. There we have the member states, we have the Commission, and we have the High Representative. I'll not explain what it is. For the European ones, you probably heard the name, but the High Representative is also there. And a lot of the things we do is typical agency work. Agency work means we have budget, we implement budget, we do financial transactions, we do procurements, grants, prizes. These numbers, well, they are indeed quite impressive because it's a lot of work. We are running the biggest contract ever awarded by the European Union directly. It's the contract for the operation of Galileo. Never the European Union awarded such a big contract. So as you can imagine, that comes with a lot of responsibility. Maybe some of you will ask, so, but are you all engineers? No, not at all. Of course, we have a number of engineers, we have lawyers, we have administrators, we have economists, we have a lot of specialists from market segments. We have people that come from agriculture, people that come from transport, people that come from very different sectors, because they bring the user view. To close, what's next? What will come next for our agency? Well, we are growing. As a manager, my first concern is to deliver on what we have to deliver. So we have to consolidate our growth. And this is what we are doing this year. This is what we will be doing next year when we will reach a little bit more than 300 staff, about 320 people we will have by then. We are developing GovSatcom. GovSatcom is a very important project. It will be a setting stone. It will be the first step of the union as union in providing telecommunication services for governments. And by the way, it's a very nice complement because you have navigation, Earth observation, telecom. So a little bit what is called the space looking down, when from space you are looking down to Earth. So it will be a very, very nice complement in that sense. There will be a lot of things to be done in space traffic management. I don't know if in your project groups you have discussed that, but it's a very important topic. There's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of work to be done by the union, because the union has legislative power, which is a very important element. So there is work to be done by the union on space traffic management. And for us, entering with the front desk, if you want, the service provision of SST is an important step. And then there is the space-based connectivity, new initiative in political discussion, where the union is looking for the creation of a constellation of satellites to provide connectivity everywhere to everyone, and including in that also not only public service for everyone, but also services for the governments of the union and those that are associated to it. So with this we I close my presentation, and I will be very happy to answer your questions. Sorry, it was a little bit less than 20 minutes for questions, but we had the echo thing.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. And now we open the floor for questions. So please go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation.
I can hear you.
Okay, so can you please elaborate a little bit more on SSA system that you are, let's say, managing?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about right now it's SST, so space surveillance and tracking. There is in Europe, and already since a while, an SST consortium. So it's a consortium of member states member states' capabilities that got together and started delivering SST services already quite some years ago. It is well established. Now the SST is moving to a next step. So it is becoming not a consortium, is moving towards a partnership. So a larger and closer integration of the capabilities of the different member states. I mean, telescopes, radioscopes, so different things that allow to establish the databases and to monitor the debris and to monitor space. On our side, our first step is to take the front desk. The front desk is the interaction with the user. So if you are a user and you register yourself, I don't know, if you have a satellite, you register yourself and you get warnings if something is coming close to your satellite. We will do as well more, for example, tracking of debris whenever there is debris re-entering Earth. Warnings to governments, to member states, telling whether there are risks or no risks. This is the operational part. Then, in SST overall, there is clearly a political mandate that is given to the Commission to work on a regulation. It's actually more than SST, it's more than SSA, it's really at STM level, a European regulation for STM. Again, now it's technical work being done, then there will be a political discussion. I think what I can anticipate is that indeed in the next 2 to 3 years, a lot is going to happen in this area from a regulamentary point of view. And the regulamentary point of view is going to be the spark that then will ignite all the technical work that will follow. So the world, or Europe at least, I guess the world as well, from an STM point of view, will look very different in 10 years from now than what it is today. I hope I answered a bit. Other questions? Yes.
Hello there. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a bit of a question about the staffing at the agency.
Sorry, I'll walk upstairs because I can't really hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is that working now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. It was very informative. I've got a bit of a question about how the staffing works at the agency. So ESO, you have staff members who are actual proper staff members. From just having a quick look at the website, it appears that there's only staffed by seconded national experts. Is that the case?
No. We have, so our staff, we follow the rules of the of the European civil servant. So I am a EU civil servant, and all the staff EU civil servants. We have what we call temporary contracts. All the agencies is not special for us. So there are temporary contracts. They can be in 2 different types of contracts, what we call administrators or contract agents, but these are people that are agency staff. Then of course, then there are internal rules, but we follow it's exactly the same rules as if you work for the European Commission, for example. It's the same principles in terms of rules, grades, etc., etc. We also have seconded national experts, yes, so we host as well seconded national experts. These are people that work in member states, in public administrations, and that are posted at the agency for a period that can be defined, so there are some rules, but we host as well seconded national experts. We have a limitation, we only hire EU nationals. And we have it's written there, we are hiring because we are. So if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of positions, and it's actually quite dynamic there. Other questions?
Rodrigo, I have a question for
Yes.
you. You mentioned about space traffic management and the importance for the European Union. How does it relate with EGNOS and with GovSatcom and Galileo? Can you please tell us a little bit more? I know that the European Commission recently they finished the Spaceways project, also related to space traffic management. Thank you.
No, I can. For example, in Galileo, and this I know because it was still in the time when I was the Galileo program manager at the agency. We had a big warning. So we are a customer of space surveillance data because we had a big debris, it was an old upper stage that was approaching a Galileo satellite in a dangerous manner. The Galileo satellites are in a specific orbit. Obviously, if there is an impact, if those orbits get polluted, there is a big issue. There is a big problem. So in this sense, we are customers. We are customers of space, of this type of space data. Then now we are becoming more than customers because we will become service providers. So with the front desk, and what will happen after, we will see. I can tell you, and this is certain. The topic of STM, space traffic management, is a topic that is in the mind of everyone. It's in the mind of the Commission, it's in the mind of the Council, it's in the mind of the European Parliament. There's a lot of parliamentarians that have STM in their mind. Of course, it touches many different political groups, many different political interests. So certainly there will be a lot happening in that area.
Hi. I have two questions. First one is more of nominal point of view. What exactly is the difference between GSA and USPA? And the second one is, do you think that in near term or midterm future, it could be possible to enlarge this organization or even fuse it with a more international broad approach?
It's a very
And
good
thank
question.
you.
Yeah. I mean, the difference from GSA to USPA is the focus. When we were the GSA, we were doing navigation. So we were purely dedicated to navigation, so Galileo and EGNOS. With the transition to USPA, we still do Galileo and EGNOS, so that part we kept, but we enlarged. And we enlarged because we took over a part of Copernicus, in particular the commercial use of Copernicus, so everything that is related to the downstream entrepreneurship, etc., of Copernicus. We took over GovSatcom, and now we are taking over SST. Always from a point of view, and I think this is important, whenever we look at the things we do, it's always on these three pillars: exploitation, security, market. So we have done that in navigation, and now we are doing it also for Copernicus, and we are doing and GovSatcom, and we will do it for SST. What will be the future? I don't have it. My crystal ball is as bad as the one of anyone else. Now, what I can tell you is that I mean, today we are in a growth phase, and we will continue. I think we will continue growing for the period of the financial framework, and I think we will continue growing in the future because there is indeed this unanimity. At least in the European context, but very much in the world context, the unanimity about space. We work very well with others. We work very well with the European Space Agency, with ESA. ESA has a very strong technology and development focus. Our focus is on the operation exploitation, the things I've mentioned. So it's actually pretty complementary. There are things that whenever we have, for example, whenever we have to develop the next Galileo generation, we go to ESA. They are best equipped for that. Then when it comes to the operations and to the service provision, we are best equipped for that. So there is a lot of collaboration. For us, it's very important that whenever ESA works with us, and they do quite a lot, they work with our rules. So it's our procurement rules, our financing rules, etc. So, and I think that will continue for a while. There are questions there, maybe?
Yeah, thank you for your very interesting presentation. Sadly, there is no question from online, but I have another one. I would like to ask you...
There are some questions over there. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, like, since you took like the SST to like mitigate the risk of collision in space, how are you trying to do that since like new mega constellation are not European properties? Or so how can you try to mitigate the fact that collision will happen more and more often and that the risk is more and more important, since none of those mega constellation from like SpaceX, OneWeb, the Chinese or Russian, or maybe I'm forgetting countries, how can you help to prevent everything?
Okay, thank you for the question. Of course, the EU space surveillance and tracking monitors a large amount of spacecraft or actually debris, but doesn't monitor all of them. And there is a lot of partnership. I think this is one of the important elements. I mentioned in my presentation the element about of course, the non-dependence and a certain autonomy, which is always important. But the collaboration is a very important element as well. There is a lot of collaboration on the space program. Let me cite you a few examples. Today, for example, Galileo and GPS are interoperable. If you have a mobile phone, you will be using Galileo and GPS at the same time. You know that if one is not there, the other will work. But on a day-to-day basis, you can use them at the same time. In Copernicus, there is also a lot of collaboration. If you have a natural catastrophe, actually almost everywhere around the world, the first images you will see in the press, in TV, Actually, they are coming from Copernicus because the emergency service of Copernicus is providing not only aid in case of natural catastrophes in Europe, but all over the world. So this collaboration is very important. And in the domain that you mentioned, the domain of SST as well, there are quite a lot of exchanges between the different organizations working on space surveillance and tracking. So where the Europeans provide information to others, and others provide information to the Europeans to create the warning whenever something is coming. I hope I answered. Okay, so there's a question here.
So I wanted to ask, just checking if the microphone was working.
works.
But yeah. So I noticed that even though ESA has a more broad range of terms of contract for like students, you guys don't. So I'm gonna bring up my no. Okay. So I know that ESA has contracts for like students, and if they want to like do part of their PhD or do part of their master thesis there, they are available too. I'm not finding anything on your website though.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
do you
Good
want to
point.
talk about it?
Yeah, I can, absolutely. Absolutely. So, because I've mentioned, and indeed, because you point to actually a partially incomplete answer that I gave, because I said that you can work for USPA if you are a staff, if you are a seconded national expert. You can also work as a trainee. It's not going to answer your question, but this element is missing. So you can also be a trainee, and we do have quite a lot of trainees in many different areas, from legal to communications to engineering, etc., etc. And we do have, and we are now starting. It's actually something that we are now starting to host PhDs. The tool we use, because we have our framework of the like the employment conditions of the union, is the tool of the seconded national expert. In order to become a seconded national expert, you have to be part of a public administration. It doesn't have to be a governmental office. It can be, for example, in a university. So we are right now exploring the possibility in some dedicated areas to have people that are doing a PhD in a public university, hosting them as seconded national experts with us. And if you have more interest, send me an email. There is my, well, there's not my contact. I'll give it afterwards. You will find my contact, because it's something we are exploring. It's a very interesting question. It's not something that we had in our, to be very honest, now we didn't have in our radar screen in the beginning, but we started getting this type of query. For example, we host quite a number of interesting data from our reference center. Our reference center, we are storing all the data from Galileo since the first signal. So, I mean, with the years, this is becoming a very interesting set of data for people, I don't know, making PhDs in geodesy, where you can observe movements of the Earth over a long time. So we are looking at ways of how to making this data available and how to host people that can work on this data. Okay, thank you. There's another one there.
Hi, Rodrigo. Thank you very much for being here with us, and thank you for your presentation. I have a question which is clearly related to the users' communities. So you said how USPA is actually working with the users and trying, of course, to open up the market, but we both know that actually there's still a lot of obstacles in the user uptake. And I was wondering which is
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it's a very good question, and there is some resistance. Basically, our strategy that has proved quite successful in Galileo. And today, Galileo is very used. GNSS at large, but Galileo as well. The 3 billion users don't come by chance, and basically. We work in different domains. So we work in the macro domain. The macro domain is basically what we do with this type of report, as you've seen. It's basically to create the global awareness for people in the different sectors to look at space and say, okay, maybe this can be of an advantage for us. This report has data from today, but is also making some projections on the different sectors. Also part of our macro work that we do is, for example, the user consultation platforms. We do them regularly. The next one will be with the EU Space Week in October, where we bring together networks of users. And basically, I mean, we get 20, 30 people in a room. Normally there is one guy that knows something about space, and there are 29 guys that know a lot about topic X, for example, agriculture, and you have everyone together discussing, okay, what is my problem, but also, I mean, what do I need to solve my problem? And then you have the interaction with the space expert saying, okay, this data, can it help, can it not help? And this is very useful for them, but it's very useful for us. By the way, the new services we are developing on Galileo, for example, on the high accuracy, some of the requirements are actually coming from this type of user platforms from the past, where we saw, okay, this is the need, this is the type of precision that they need in order to capture a certain market. Authentication as well. Authentication, for example, it will have a lot of use in the road world, in the truck drivers, the digital tachograph. Big word, but actually a quite important thing for transport. So there we interact at the macro level. Then we interact with what we call creation of demand. It's basically making sure that your receiver is ready to receive Galileo or to receive EU space data. It was not the case before. With whom do we work? Well, we work with the chipset manufacturers. How do we make sure that the people that manufacture the chipset that goes into the mobile phone, that goes into the in-car navigation, to the boat navigation, already incorporates Galileo from the beginning? So a lot of work is done on that area. And this is particular for navigation because the chipset plays a big role. I mean, if you cannot buy, if there are no chipsets with Galileo, you cannot buy a mobile phone Galileo equipped. And then the last element, or the third element, not the last, is the third element, is the element of creating the application, so developing applications. And this is what we do transversally for all the elements of the space program. So we make calls, and the calls we do are quite open because we don't want to steer a solution. I mean, we don't know the solution very often. It's not up to us to know the solution. If you are developing a solution for energy management, it's actually the energy people that will know what is the solution for the problem. And there we try to match make or to bring together companies working in a certain sector with companies that have some knowledge on the downstream of space in order to create solutions and applications. So three elements: applications, chipset receivers, and the macro level. Is it a perfect solution? There are no perfect solutions. I can say that for Galileo, I mean, the 3 billion in Galileo, when I joined the agency in 2017, March 2017, there were all around Europe, all around the world, a couple of hundreds of users of Galileo. Mostly universities that found it fancy to get the signals and look at them. Today, 5.5 years after, we are at 3 billion. And it was like that when you started having the new, Samsung, iPhone, Sony, etc., equipped with the Galileo chipset. Then suddenly there were millions and millions and millions of devices equipped with Galileo.
Okay, Rodrigo. So thank you very much for all the insights that you brought today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And also for us at the International Space University, obviously it was our first encounter with ESPA as well on the official side. So on behalf of the university, I would like to just present you a ISU International Intercultural Interdisciplinary Medal. So hopefully we will be in collaboration for the years to come. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
And ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our distinguished lecture series of the Space Studies Program 2022. For the ones who are watching online, there is a last announcement that I want to make. The last live stream will not be a distinguished lecture, but rather it will be actually our teams here presenting. In around 2 weeks, on the 25th of August, please mark this day on your calendars, we will be starting, that will be a long day, we will be starting at 8:30 a.m. Portuguese time, and our 4 teams will be presenting to you the team projects that they are currently working on. So we have 4 teams, one working on the international collaboration on the Chinese space station, another team working on the space for non-space, another team working on space, climate, ocean interactions, and the 4th team working on microgravity business. So starting 8:30 a.m., we will be listening the spectacular presentations of these 4 teams. So please mark this day on your calendars and tune in, and you will be also able to ask your questions live on that day. Until then, stay safe, stay with space. Take care.